Democratic State Senator Sarah Eckhardt from Austin, thank you so much and welcome to Ion Politics.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
So, lots of topics to get to. I want to start with bail reform, which Governor Abbott is pushing now that uh, school choice has passed and is on his way to his desk. And so the Texas Senate voted recently 28 to 2 for bail reform. You were one of two state senators who voted against it. Just wanted to find out why.
There was a lot of good stuff in the bill, but on balance, I had to vote against it because it took away fundamental rights to individuals based on where they were born. And as you know, and I hope that our entire listening audience knows, that under the US Constitution, as well as the state constitution, a judge gets to determine the risk of you reoffending or being a flight risk based on an individual analysis, not on where you were born.
And so expand on that a little bit. This was you're talking about people who were arrested in this country illegally.
So, if an individual is arrested in the state of Texas, they go before a magistrate, and a magistrate determines based on the offense and based on their likelihood to not show back up to address the allegation. The judge makes a determination on whether they need to be held pre-trial. And so, where you're from is not a criteria. It can be considered if you're alleged to have committed a serious offense and you are from another country and you are undocumented and you are likely to flee, then a judge can make that call. But we shouldn't make a blanket law that says if you were born in another country and you get arrested, you have to be held pretrial until
Uh,
you're.
there, I'm sorry, there were other reasons that you opposed. You placed a statement in the Senate Journal,
Mhm.
and correct me if I'm wrong. One of the several of the things that you also brought up was Texas already has one of the highest pretrial detention rates. The bill removes a case-by-case discretion, which you discussed a little bit, and that the bill allows only elected judges to set bail. So, talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure, Texas does have one of the highest pretrial detention rates in the nation. And even as our violent crime rate goes down. So that indicates that we are over detaining individuals. They can't get out pretrial because of some blanket assumptions rather than a case by case determination. And to add to that over detention, individuals who may be in this country undocumented, but they may have been here for 20, 30 years. They may have families and businesses, are highly unlikely to flee, and the offense for which they were arrested may not even be provable. So why would we keep that person in pretrial detention? If the judge makes a determination that the case is weak and they're unlikely to not show back up for their case.
As you know, Governor Abbott and the Lieutenant Governor have been very vocal about judges in Houston and Harris County for setting very low bail for people who then go out and recommit, in many cases, violent crimes, including murder. And so, why shouldn't there be a tightening of the rules in cases where people who are charged with murder and other violent crimes, once they're released, are recommitting?
I'm a former prosecutor, and so I am right there with folks who want to make sure that violent offenders are not let back out on the streets. But we have elected judges in Texas. And if an elected judge is too lenient and doesn't protect the community's safety, the remedy is to vote them out. And we have.
And why do you think many of the other Democrats in the Senate did vote for this?
When there are tragic and very dramatic cases, like the case that this particular bill was predicated on, it's difficult for a politician to say no. It's difficult to stand up and say, "Hold up." The folks who perpetrated this horrific act were not in the custody of a state or county jail when they perpetrated this crime. They were not released by a state judge before they perpetrated this horrific crime. They were released by Border Patrol because Border Patrol saw no criminal history in their database for these two individuals.
Let me ask you a little bit about SB 8, which was a bill requiring local law enforcement to work with federal immigration authorities, 287G. You voted against it. Why is that?
As a former county judge, I was over the budget of the county jail. Our jail and law enforcement costs at the county level are always one of our largest investments of local property taxes. It takes a lot to make sure that we chase down and detain people who are truly dangerous to our community. If local law enforcement and local jails are diverted to chasing down and detaining immigrants, sometimes mostly immigrants who have no criminal history, then we will not have the resources to chase down and detain those people who we know are actually dangerous to our community.
And is the state going to provide any funding so that the locals aren't bearing the brunt of the cost, as you know, as you said, is a big concern?
There is funding provided to counties that are below a million in population, but for counties above a million, there is no funding. That's where the preponderance of the detentions will occur. And further, when those larger counties have to raise their budget to chase down and detain probably low level or no level criminally involved immigrants, they won't ever be able to bring their budget down because of our prohibition on, quote, defunding the police.
And why weren't funds made available for those larger counties?
Placed in its best light, it's because the larger counties have a larger property tax base to pay for this. But that's just placed in the best light. The real kicker here is that they must devote a larger percentage of the available property tax base to a federal obligation, and they will never be able to bring that investment down.
Also wanted to ask you about Senate Bill 16, which is a proof of citizenship vote. What was your largest concern there?
My largest concern there is it's just yet another hoop that voters have to jump through to get to the polls. It functions like a poll tax. Getting a passport on average costs more than $100. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to get one. Also, getting a birth certificate to prove up your citizenship, although the state of Texas will give you a free one if you show up in person, and you can only use that freebie once. So if you lose it, you'll have to go back to the office of vital statistics and pay $20 for another birth certificate. So this is functioning as a suppression on access to voting for U.S. citizens.
And what do you say to Republicans who say, look, this is just, why shouldn't people prove that they're actual citizens before they vote?
They do prove that they're actual citizens. In order to register to vote in a federal election, you have to swear that you're a U.S. citizen. The incidence of non-U.S. citizens voting is incredibly small, so small it's never made a difference in an election, and it's almost always, if not always, a mistake of a non-citizen who just has so much zeal for participation, they don't realize that what they're doing is wrong.
And if I may, I just wanted to bring up another topic, and that is abortion. I know that the Senate gave initial approval to a bill yesterday that would clamp down on the sales of drugs that induce abortions, mifepristone, et cetera. What do you make of this? Because this comes at the same time that the Senate passed unanimously Senate Bill 31, which provides legal clarification for doctors so that they know when they can, really take matters into their own hands and save this woman's life, or at least a prevention of having a major bodily function problem going forward.
This is an ongoing effort in the state of Texas to isolate women and make them fugitives if they attempt to control their own reproductive capabilities. So this is Both of these bills are in a line of bills stretching back at least to 2021 and even further back to prevent women from exerting control over their own reproduction.
And do you see this? I mean, do you see more bills coming in future sessions as a
Oh, yeah,
result?
absolutely. We have more bills coming in this session to further curtail or punish anyone who tries to help a woman exert control over her own reproductive capabilities.
And I did want to ask one other question because of something you said before, and that was you're a former prosecutor.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, looking ahead to 2026, are you considering running for higher office now that the Attorney General's office, there's going to be a vacancy there?
I think all good Democrats and good Republicans who want to preserve democracy and the independence of the courts ought to consider running. Yes,
So you're among those considering it.
I think all of us who are patriotic adherents to democracy should. Yes.
All right, Senator Sarah Eckhardt of Austin, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack.